if we go to just what comes up when we're thinking about this, if we just go to what we currently know, what comes up first in our internal Google search bar, we may well be missing what would be the most powerful for the audience. The way that we've been taught to create has us focusing on what we want to share. The second way, when we flip our thinking and go deeper into our blind spots, has us focusing on what will be useful and in service to the audience. How do we actually do this? Welcome back to the Speaker Driven Business Podcast. And in this particular episode, we're going to start teaching you how to pull the most powerful part of your speech or presentation together. That's right. We're going to actually show you how to do the heavy lifting to make your engine room the most powerful part of what you've got to give people. Now, our approach has been built over time because one thing I noticed, even almost a decade ago when I first started doing this, is that I usually work with people who are clever. Now, let's face it, most of us have this depth of lived and worked experience when we get to a certain period of our life that has so much wisdom to share and so many things that we can teach and show other people. But what happens with clever people is there's a clever person syndrome or a clever person trap. And that is, how do I speak on all of the things? How do I jam all of my ideas in? How do I make sure that the thing that I'm choosing is the right thing? And I believe it's getting stronger and stronger because it's almost like we've internalized this sense of FOMO. And what I mean by that is that, that fear of missing out. So if I land on that thing, do I lose that thing? If I go here, do I never get to go back there? If I park that for now, does it disappear altogether? What if I don't give them the things that they're looking for? What if they don't realize that I also can do this, and this? And it really is becoming this deeply ingrained fear of missing out on delivering the right thing that's actually almost putting the clever people that I know into a double bind. It's actually created this inability to land on one idea or to teach one thing. Now, in the TED Talks that we teach people and the whole TED Talking format, it's really important that it's only one idea. Obviously, if you're building a business building presentation, if you're a subject matter expert, if you're looking to become a professional speaker, there may well and more than likely will be more than one idea in a keynote. But we are so close to what we know to be true. And we've talked through in previous episodes how to get really clear on the one bold or the clearest idea that you should be starting with. But we're so close to it that we are actually resistant to landing on one thing, one idea, or even just a couple of ideas. We want to jam all the things in, but we can get crystal clear. What I want you to understand as we open up this episode is that that is not the last of the danger points. The next danger point is actually one that most of us are not aware of. And yet it is the number one reason why most speakers, for whatever purpose, if it's a professional speaker, subject matter expert, business building presentations, it's the number one reason why most speakers sink into the noise, why they fail to stand out and fail to get the cut through that they're looking for. I want to put it to you like this. When we do a Google search, how many of you actually go past page 1? And if you do, how many of you go past page 2 unless it's something that you're really obsessed about? This is actually how we usually create our speeches. We are taught to create in a very logical fashion, to get the key points across, to also go with what we know to be true. But the trick is that when we put things together, we are actually our own version of Google. And what I mean by that is we're actually only going to what's most recent. We're actually only going to the thing that comes straight up first when we're actually interrogating our own mind, if you like. And actually interrogating is the wrong word because usually we're not interrogating. Usually we're just taking what our brains and our memory serves up to us first. Just like if we were tapping into a search bar in Google, we are literally taking page 1, maybe some of page 2, and thinking that that's going to cut us through the noise. And yet we all know if we're doing a physical Google search that page 1 and page 2 does does not cut through the noise. So why is it then that we're actually defaulting to exactly the same sort of response when we're actually putting our speeches together? I'm going to answer that as we go through. But the other thing that I want you to think about is we don't go deep enough in exploring our own genius and exploring the things that actually create the seeds of that genius. And what I want you to think about with this is have you done the 100 things before you die list? 100 things I want to do before I die, or, these days we say the 100 things I want to do while I'm still alive. Have you done one of those before? Now, I don't know about you, but when I do them, it's kind of like the first 30 or 40 kind of straight off the top of my head. Then what happens is the next sort of 20 to 30, 40 if I'm lucky, start to really slow down. They come a little bit hard to do. And then on my very worst days, when I'm trying to finish that 100 ideas list, the last 20 to 30 kind of almost need a bottle of wine or retreating to the hills in a Tibetan monk monastery or something like that. Like, it needs extreme measures to get to the 100. And it's the same is true. It gets very uncomfortable when we go deeper than just page 1 or page 2. It goes very uncomfortable when we go deeper than just what comes to mind straight away. And we actually get to blank spaces. And we think, well, I don't know anything else, right? But that's just because it's in our blind spots. It's because we already know it. Quite simply, if we go to just what comes up when we're thinking about this, if we just go to what we currently know, what comes up first in our internal Google search bar, we may well be missing what would be the most powerful for the audience. The way that we've been taught to create has us focusing on what we want to share. The second way, when we flip our thinking and go deeper into our blind spots, has us focusing on what will be useful and in service to the audience, which is all well and good to talk about, but how do we actually do this? Well, the first thing is you need to have answered the Blue Apple questions from episode 17, because this focuses your engine room, especially for the clever amongst us who want to share and teach and explain and absolutely everything we know. Again, a reminder that this is simply not possible. We are going for the head of the arrow that will create the greatest interrupt, the greatest impact, make the most difference, not to us and how we feel, but to our audience. Really, really interesting. Actually, we're running at the moment, as this podcast is being recorded, a Speak Like TED program, which is proving to be one of my favorite things to do so far this year. And it's only early in the year, so please do forgive me. But one of our participants was incredibly frustrated and actually really stuck because she couldn't understand how to get all of her life experience into one bold idea. The key is she's not supposed to, and either are you. And especially when it comes to TED Talks, you're trying to get all of your life experience into just 11 to 18 minutes. It's not going to happen. But even at 45 and 60 minutes, you do not have the time to get everything in. And this is the trap we fall into. We actually underestimate how much we can get into 11 to 18 minutes, and we overestimate what we should get into 45 to 60 minutes. So what the Blue Apple does is it brings everything into focus. And I want you to bring your Blue Apple into focus. Who is your audience? What is this topic? And what is the gift? What do we want them to be able to know and to do when we're finished? These are the only 3 elements of the Blue Apple that you need to keep front and center as you build your engine room, because the engine room is where we show them how to solve their challenges. And a beautiful, well-formed Blue Apple keeps the filters strong and means the decisions on what goes in and what goes out become very clear. So that's all well and good. You got your Blue Apple in place. What do we do? Well, we don't start with Google. Our laptops and our devices are actually the last thing we bring into this process. Google, our files, our previous speeches, our client work, it literally all gets put aside in our closed laptops and switched off devices, because the secret, the key to delivering powerful and authentic content that is uniquely yours is to first pull out what is inside of you, your lived and worked experience, your insights and perspectives, your strategies, your methodologies, and to go deeper than what is current, what is at the front of your mind. And the true beauty in this is that once you master this strategy that we were pulling together over the next few episodes, you will be unbeatable when it comes to speaking into the power of your unique knowledge and experience and perspective. You will remove almost all of the friction around delivering flawlessly, because you are starting with what you know at the deepest levels, and your ability to create resonance with any audience will be on a level you have never experienced before. You will not have to make sure you're authentic, whatever the hell that is, because you've taken the time to stop, think, breathe, dive a little deeper into the crevices that hold those seams of gold. Now, let me walk you through the start of the process, where we start. And this is actually getting everything out of your mind, your heart, your soul without qualification. So we're going to use a touch of neuroscience to really get us moving and really be able to dig deeper and get everything you know out of your head, your heart, everything you know to be true about this topic and this gift. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to, step number 1, go and get some fluorescent colored Post-it notes. Super, super important that they're fluorescent. Cannot be pastel. Pastel does not work. We want to spark the creativity. We want to spark curiosity. And you can't do that with pastels. Really, really funny story. In one of my live workshops a few years ago, a gentleman walked in who knew that I did Post-it notes and thought he knew the process and turned up with a whole heap of pastel Post-it notes and was quite chuffed with himself. And I literally walked over at this point when we got to this part of the program and I grabbed them and I threw them in the bin, because pastels don't work when it comes to stimulating our curiosity and creativity. And that's what this is all about. So you're going to grab some fluorescent Post-it notes, and they're going to be the little square ones. Then you're also going to find or buy yourself some dark, preferably black Sharpie pens or something similar. And what we're looking for is that textured feel of a marker pen when you're writing, because that kinesthetic effect of that textured feel when you're writing on a bright Post-it note, that's what we're looking to do. The next thing is you're actually going to find a space which has glass walls to the outside, glass windows to the outside, or even glass doors, big sliding glass doors. And this is what you're going to be using for this neurostorming exercise, because what we're looking for is the best way to describe why we use glass. And if you don't have glass doors and glass walls that you can use and glass windows, then it's quite okay to use a mirrored surface on for example, sliding doors on a wardrobe. But one of the reasons why we're using glass is because we want to unlock your thinking. And the metaphor I always think of with this is many, many years ago, or not so many years ago, but for about 4 years, I worked with gold medal Olympians. And with the swimmers, one of the things that I learned was the difference between the gold medalists and silver medalists at the Olympics. We all see it. It's like a split second of a difference. And the difference actually is that the gold medalist swims through the wall and the silver medalist swims to the wall. And that is what creates that split second of difference when it is that close. And this is what I want for you when we're actually getting everything out of you. I don't want you going to just what comes quickly. We've already spoken about that. I want you going beyond. And that's why the glass is important. Right? Because in this process, we're going to be putting the Post-it notes up on that glass, and I want you thinking beyond. I don't want anything boxing in your thinking. So this is purely from a neurological perspective, and this is also very powerful for making sure that we are actually opening up our thinking, full stop. Okay, so what we're going to do next is the actual strategy. And what happens with this actual strategy is this. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to take 3 of those Post-it notes, and on them, you're going to write who the audience is, what the topic is, and what the gift is. Now you're seeing that your blue apple really does have to be as simple as I said, because these are the things that are going to go up. Now you're going to take those 3 Post-it notes and you're going to stand in front of the glass, wall, door, window, whatever you're using. And when you get up on tippy toes, you're then going to actually raise your hand, and as high as you can while you're on tippy toes, you're going to put that Post-it note up that high. And the reason being is because then when you step down and step back to look up at it, you actually put yourself into the neurological third perspective. And this actually opens up your thinking to see all perspectives. And we want to do that. We want to create this almost triangle with the wall or the door that we're actually looking up to. The other thing, by actually putting it above eye height to that height, the other thing is you're actually going to be, every time you look up to the top, you're going to be putting yourself into the recall zone. Now, the recall zone is where you're actually able to bring forward things that you do already know or have remembered, but you don't consciously go there straight up. And this is going to be very important as we get through the process. So that's step number 1. Get your 3 Post-it notes up as high as you can possibly reach, and then step back. Then step number 2 is I want you to make a commitment that you will not prejudge anything that comes up on these Post-it notes. We are not culling yet. This is getting everything out that we know to be true. Next step is that I want you to actually think about all the things that you have heard or know or want to say about your topic and the gift. All the things that you wish people knew, all the things you know how to teach, all the proven methodologies and frameworks that you have, all the things that surprise you that people don't know about this, all the things that you wish people knew about this, all the things that come from deep within your lived or worked experience. I want you to start thinking about all of them. And for every single one of them, you are going to write a Post-it note and you're going to put it up on the wall, starting underneath those 3 Post-it notes up the top. And you are going to do this and keep going and it doesn't have to be in order, and it doesn't have to be neat. It doesn't have to be tidy. You're just going to have to get them all out. And I want you to keep going until you run out of things, right? Now, as you do this, every time you slow down or think that you've reached the end, I'm going to tell you now that you probably haven't. And so this is where some of the unique aspects of how we do this come in. Because what I'm going to want you to do is actually, when you feel like you're at a stop or you've run out or there's possibly no more, I want you to step back into that third position, lift your gaze and start scanning all the way down. And as you do that, start asking yourself, and what else? And what else do I know? And what else? And what else? And I want you to ask it at this sort of pace. And what else? And what else do I know? And what else? And what else do I know? And ask that repeatedly until you can ask it of yourself 7 times without a single other Post-it note coming out. When you can ask that question of yourself with the pauses and the space 7 times without another Post-it note coming out, then you have truly got to the end. Now, most people, before they try the process the first time, think it's a little bit crazy, and most people go a little bit crazy in the process. There's no doubt about it. But what I want you to understand is that it is incredible what comes up. If you're getting stuck, think about conversations with friends. Think about if you're teaching. Think about the client work that you do. Think about what people are asking you about. Think about when you're brainstorming with people. Think about your sales calls, even if this is a business presentation, right? So think about all the things where this comes up, because in amongst this may well be the genius that you're looking for. Now, there is no right or wrong with how much you need to get out. I would say if you haven't got to 20 or 25 Post-it notes, you're not really trying. Okay. And sometimes it takes days for this to percolate. What I do know is in our workshops, when we have about 2 to 3 hours to do this process, is that most people get to having sort of between 30 and 50 Post-it notes up. But we have people who literally have hundreds. So there is no right or wrong, but don't give up at 5 or 6, because that's 5 or 6 is just what you're consciously thinking of fast. I want you to keep going until you've got at least 20 to 25 out. And also I want you to make a commitment that you are going to not prejudge what comes up. You're going to write whatever comes up for you, and you are going to commit to that process of asking yourself 7 times, and what else, without a single Post-it note coming out before you declare the process is over. So I encourage you to go away and do that and get familiar with it. And next episode, we're going to go a little bit deeper into actually how we bring it all together.